the Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner.
Hello, welcome to High Ash Farm. Suffice it to say, it's another very hot day. We're enjoying the hospitality of farmer Chris Skinner, as we always do on these Countryside Podcasts. And it's the day after the eclipse, Chris.
Yes, Matthew, last night at about 6:30, cars started to arrive here at the farm. Obviously, having high in the name means there's a few high spots, and there's one particular location on the farm where you have a panoramic view of both Norwich and the setting sun. And I drove up at 7 o'clock. The roads were a bit busier than normal, and as I got close to the site, my mouth opened wide, because I reckon we had 250, 300 cars all parked on the roadside verges as far as you could see. And one of the fields, which is a high spot, I had the best part of 500 people on, lots of children, all being really well behaved, so there was no get off my land shouting and going red in the face. And this morning when I checked round expecting a rash of tin cans, bottles, crisp packets, nothing. Absolutely brilliant. So it put a huge smile on my face, and everybody was just having such a lovely time. Dads with sieves on their faces, and cereal boxes with the bottom cut out, little pinhole cameras.
Did you get to see it?
I certainly did. I took my welding mask out. I came back to the farm and took it out and shared it round so lots of people could actually see it in a safe manner, because it goes right round your face and it excludes all the sunlight, so there's no danger attached to it. And there was one gentleman there, and I said, "Oh, goodness, you've used a sieve." He said, "Yes, it was really quite impressive." But he said, "This is even more impressive." And he opened a packet up from 1999, and he had the original sunglasses where you could view the eclipse, the last one, all those years ago. So,
But there was quite a big chunk taken out of the sun here, wasn't there? I mean,
there was.
Further west was more, but here was 90, wasn't it?
90-odd% here. Yes, the further west, because it kind of crept down off the west coast of Ireland, the totality we call it, and then it curves round just through Spain, and my son's at Malta, and I believe he had 100% down there.
Gracious, that was
yes.
lucky. Did he plan that?
No, I don't think he did plan it. I think it was accidental. He's just having a week off because there's very little we can do. We're doing lots of servicing on the farm, all the maintenance, and getting all the equipment ready for next year.
And still praying for rain.
Absolutely. We're on one of the pastures here at the farm, and although the crop has been removed, this was a hay field, it's still flammable, and rats are demented terrier. His mad dog's an Englishman.
He's right out in the middle of the field in the glaring sunshine. It's going to get warmer later, though.
Yes,
mid-30s.
I think so today. It's really challenging and sapping. You know, doing any work after midday here is a real challenge. Anyway, each day at High Ash Farm, we're quite close to the city of Norwich. There's been peregrines nesting there on the cathedral, and we have at least one kill a day by an adult peregrine, and they usually catch pigeons. There's lots of wood pigeons here, and some of the overwinter wild bird seed mix attracts what we call feral pigeons. And my neighbour hasn't combined his vining peas. They're still in the field over the top there, and that's absolutely plastered with pigeons feeding on the peas, which are now like bullets.
Absolutely no good for harvesting.
No, not. It's way too late now. So the peregrine comes in and kills a pigeon usually, and then perhaps takes some back but to feed the young. But generally the young are now independent of the parents, so peregrine on the ground, feathers flying from the dead pigeon. And we mentioned some of my failures on last week's podcast, but we have a success story here at the farm, which are the buzzards. just one of the many species that are thriving here. We've had 3 pairs of buzzards nesting at High Ash this year. They're all welcome. And what's happened is the last pair to fledge in the little wood behind us, it's called Woodcock Wood, high up in a tree. There's a massive nest there, which was built on top of last year's nest, and that in turn was built on the previous year's nest. I think we could both go up there and sit on the platform.
So it's like treble story.
It's both tall, and it's a good 4 feet across the top of it. They had some more each year. Anyway, they've successfully reared 2 youngsters, and the parent buzzards, they say there's no honour amongst thieves, but the parent buzzards, as soon as they watch the peregrines making a kill, dive bomb the peregrine, who flies off and leaves his recent kill on the ground.
Which is often a pigeon.
Yeah, nearly always a pigeon. And so the buzzards bring the pigeon to this spot, and this bale right beside us has turned into a kind of plucking station. And this is the remnants of 2 or 3 pigeons. There's some wood pigeon feathers on the ground and feral pigeons, and the top of the bale is absolutely covered in pigeon feathers.
Grey and white, bluish colour, feathers everywhere.
There are, absolutely. So I was driving up Coaster Lane, which is about a quarter of a mile away. I could see something on this particular bale as I was driving up and down the lane with the tractor, and when I had a little look, there was a pair of young buzzards on here, on the bale itself, tucking into the food that had been brought by their parents, which is quite normal for parent buzzards to carry on feeding their young after they're fledged, after they've left the nest. But there's an oak tree right behind us, and the young usually sit in there waiting for the next meal to arrive on this bale. It's kind of like a takeaway. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, what's this, Chris?
Yes,
that a bit of...
There's a bit of rabbit there, rabbit's foot. Yes, yeah, and this is the remnants of a pigeon. All the meat stripped off it completely.
This is expert butchery skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at this, and that's the sternum of a pigeon. So you get all sorts of bits and pieces. Peregrine usually won't kill rabbits, but the parent buzzards, this is a young rabbit's foot. By the look of it, it's not very big. Not very lucky for the rabbit, but it's left its foot here.
So this is like a table for them. It's easier for them up here than down on the ground, is it?
Absolutely. Well, it's one spot, and so the young buzzards know that they'll get fed here if they hang about in the locality. The parents' ideal would be that the young buzzards start fending for themselves. So a little bit of hay at the end of the bale to secrete the camera, and I popped the camera right on this spot here, pointing across the top of the bale, and I have got the most amusing videos of the 2 young buzzards sort of trying to feed off a pigeon, and obviously being either brother and sister or 2 brothers, they weren't getting on too well, so they had a scrap right in front of the camera and fell off the end of the bale, and I've managed to capture that, and hopefully it will be on this weekend's Facebook page on High Ash Farm, so you should be able to enjoy the little bit that we're talking about, and noticing in the background the absolutely parched pasture.
Easy for you to say.
Yes, bit of a tongue twister. So buzzards are nested near us, usual 2 to 3 eggs. Normally only 2 will hatch. They generally lay the eggs about 2 to 3 days apart, and it's between 35 days incubation, and both the male and the female buzzard will incubate the eggs. They kind of take it in turns, which works really well. All over the farm we've got lots and lots of rabbit warrens, which we've talked about before, so there's a constant supply of young rabbits, one of which is on, the remains of it is on this bale, and they've got a reputation for being kind of lazy hunters, because they'll sit in these old oak trees with rather a hunched appearance and just wait for some prey, whether it's a beetle. They he will eat earthworms as well, but none are available at the moment. Small birds, particularly fledgling birds, that aren't too adept at making a quick escape, and the buzzards will just launch itself off and just plane down towards it almost silently, so they're not agile like a sparrowhawk or a kestrel and various other birds. Oh, a red kite would be another one, where you see those twisting and turning looking for their prey, and red kite will take carrion, but buzzards generally don't, although in this instance the buzzards have learnt that, rather like blue tits learnt to take the milk bottle tops off in the 1950s and 60s. It's a kind of learnt behaviour that the peregrines doing all the work, so the buzzards are noted for being lazy, so it didn't surprise me to see them doing this. But their nesting is amazing when you see them when they're actually pairing up in January and February. This is a pair of adult buzzards. They do courtship displaying and they fly up above the woods. But we've got 3 pairs here now, and that's one of the success stories. Not just at High Ash, but if we go back to the 1950s, myxomatosis struck in and wiped out a lot of their food source very, very quickly, and the buzzard numbers for a year or two dropped, and since then there's also been a drop in gamekeeping from the early 1900s with the First World War towards the Second World War in the 1940s. A lot of gamekeepers got called in for army service, and so gamekeeping dropped away, so poisoning was reduced. There was a bit of a more enlightened view of looking after buzzards and other forms of wildlife. Buzzards, after all, birds of prey, they are protected. And you go back, way back in history, they were extinct in the southern half of the UK. Mainly they were poisoned and trapped and shot because they would affect game birds. But going way back in history, 15th and 16th century, we cleared a lot of the woodland across the UK for the Industrial Revolution, for heating and smelting and timber for building construction. So the whole landscape changed, and that opened the door for buzzards to start their increase, although they had several setbacks over the centuries, because they like kind of wooded hillsides, which we have at High Ash Farm. We're in the bottom of a valley here, woods all over, and each one of the woods that we can see has a pair of buzzards in, and that was only really typical over in the west of the UK, over in Wales, for instance, where if you were driving through the countryside, you might see 100 buzzards in a day over there, and that would never be the case here in East Anglia until about 20 years ago. So we go back to year 2000, there were about 40,000 individual buzzards in the UK, and today we're topping that 55,000 birds. So they've spread eastwards and southwards and away from some of the more remote areas, which was their habitat. So Rat's here, and he's actually panting now. He's just trod on something, and I think that was a thistle, and did a quick yelp. Yeah, so he's got his tail between his legs.
Oh, he's found some
no,
shade.
He's now gone into shade beside the bale here. Yes, mad dogs and Englishmen indeed. So it's a real success story, following all my disasters that I talked about last week. And there are lots of others as well. Remember, they're birds of prey. And as soon as you see a buzzard, usually from this time of day onwards, getting on towards midday, they fly around high up, wings outspread, and there's no mistake that we call them Taurus eagles here at the farm, because people say to me, do you know you've got eagles circling round above? And I sort of smile and say, I think they're probably buzzards, but they're exactly the same outline. It is quite funny how people see them, and just that lazy habit they have of sitting about on branches fits in with their personality completely, and they just dive down, not fast or anything. They do it by stealth and catch their prey. Younger in the nest for 8 to 10, even 12 weeks, so they're in there a long time, and once they're fledged now, they'll leave the nesting site and come out into the open fields there at High Ash Farm, and whilst they're here, they're protected. So it's a real privilege to know I've kind of had a little hand in the increase in this part of Norfolk.
Look out for the video on the High Ash Farm Facebook site of those two young buzzards having a meal and then coming to grief off the side of the, not seriously though, off the side of this bale. Well, we go from a bird that's an apex predator to another winged wonder on the farm, and this is Chris the other evening. Billing and cooing, the pigeons of High Ash Farm, among the cast of characters that we meet each week.
And I'm the next character that you're likely to meet on the Countryside podcast, and we've got a small favour to ask. There are certain costs involved which we can't avoid. What we're asking for is a small contribution to help the running costs of this podcast.
And you can find all the details on the High Ash Farm website, and you can make a monthly or one-off payment. Everything's gratefully received, and let's keep this marvellous slice of wildlife podcasting going with Chris Skinner and the pigeons.
Why not? Yes, it's absolutely fantastic. It's just after 9 o'clock in the evening, and it's been a long and hectic day on the farm. I'm sitting out at the end of my house on the patio, just enjoying the peace and tranquility at this time of the day. The sky way over in the west is a kind of salmon pink, and the lights, I've got a panoramic view of Norwich. The lights in the city are just coming on, and loads of mallard duck have been flying past me, almost overhead, some of them, heading down to the lake. They've had an evening feed at the farm duck pond, and to spend the night somewhere nice and quiet and peaceful, they're all heading off. Anyway, my house is quite old. It's a former piggery. Some people say it still is. When it got re-roofed, and I made sure there was lots of gaps, there are Norfolk pantiles on the roof, and each evening, about this time, about dusk, a colony of bats live almost above where I sleep. So I have bats above my head at night, and then they'll go out and feed, which happens about now. And the farmhouse where I was born is just behind me, very large old house, and there's also a new extension on it, and the bats love that new portion. My first pipistrelle has just gone over the top of me, and another one. Wow, two of them. They're almost like clockwork. They are creatures of habit. They're obviously nocturnal, so they'll fly at night, and if you'd have been here half an hour ago, the swallows would have been flying about in the same manner. One's just diving above me and just scooped over Rat's head. He's rather large quarry. He's sitting there beside me on the grass, and one's just diving right round me. It's absolutely perfect, exactly what I wanted to see. So really exciting. So that's the most commonest bat. Way back in the mid-1990s, the World Wildlife Fund for Nature predicted that pipistrelle bats and many of the other species would be extinct by the end of the first decade of the 2000s. And fortunately that hasn't happened. So the pipistrelle is UK's most commonest bat, and that's the one you're likely to see most of. And that's the one mainly I'm talking about this evening, because it is quite common. It's a tiny, tiny little bat. It's only 1.5 inches, to give you an idea, from tip of nose to the end of the tail. Remember, they don't have feathers, but they have stretched skin over their forearms and extra long wings there, skin stretched between them, and that enables them to fly. And they are mammals as well, so they do feed their young on milk, and the young are born about sort of early to mid-June, but they have rather an unusual mating behaviour. They mate autumn, even into early winter sometimes, mainly autumn. And then there's something called delayed implantation. So the female stores the sperm in her uterus, and then fertilization usually happens January, February time, and gestation's about sort of 40, 50, 60 days. It depends on the conditions where they're hibernating. So yes, they do hibernate. They spend quite a bit of the winter asleep in communal roosts. Often they're quite difficult to find because they are so small, occasionally in hollow trees, but more often than not in attics, anywhere cool, right down to about 2-3 degrees centigrade's ideal for them. And they have another kind of companion bat, which is a little bit larger, called the ceratine, and you're more likely to see ceratines in urban areas, although you'll also see pipistrelles there as well. And pipistrelles out in the countryside, around woodland. We have lots here at the farm because we have lots of old trees, woodpecker holes in. When the holes are on the south side of the tree, the bats will use that as a sort of nursery colony. They give birth, as I said, in early June, always one youngster, and they'll have a little colony of them in the roost, maybe a dozen young. The young can fly quite early on in their life. 3-4 weeks is normal for them, and they'll suckle their mother up until that point and then learn to catch food themselves. But tiny little creatures, not everybody's favourite. So forget the bats in the belfry bit, because that's far too cold and windy, even in the local church. Although we do have bats down at St Edmund Parish Church, down at the bottom end of the village there, but they'd be under the soffit boards just behind where the gutters are. That's a good place for them, particularly on the south side. They seem to like the warmth more than anything, and temperatures right up towards 50 degrees Celsius have been recorded where bats roost sometimes. They will pant and they will sweat, or they'll move to somewhere a little bit cooler, perhaps under the eaves, when the conditions are extreme. They also don't like extreme cold as well, and they will move their roosts or even their summer roosts from time to time as well. But this is the time, so it's gone quiet around me at the moment. I can't see any flying around. So they'll have a kind of traditional route where they'll leave where they spent the daytime hours, so leave early evening at dusk now, and fly down hedgerows just looking for soft-bodied creatures, and they'll fly down as far as the lake on High Ash Farm and often see them feeding there early evening, snapping up the caddisflies, just flying, almost touching the water, rather like the swallows do sometimes when they're getting a drink. Absolutely lovely to have them here. They're protected species, obviously. People just, there's an old saying that bats need friends, and they certainly do, because they don't lend themselves easily to the scrutiny of being adored, because they often have dog-like faces. A tiny pipistrelle will often, if it's actually trapped in something and has to be freed, it shows its tiny little razor-like teeth. Another pipistrelle's just gone past me, and another one. Yeah, a couple just flying, darting, and that's typical of them, just weaving flight very fast indeed, but using their echolocation, which is one of the miracles of nature. Some of the larger species, there's one called the long-eared bat and the whispering bat, they can find their prey, soft prey, actually on leaves, because the echolocation, so they'll hover towards where there's something like a caterpillar or something like that on the leaf, and they distinguish between the leaf and the caterpillar and catch their prey on the wing like that. Absolutely amazing. But the pips, or pipistrelles I should say, generally catch small insects and crunch them up, and once on a lovely evening like this, it's still, it's very warm as well, so there's lots of flying insects about. The daytime insects are replaced often by moths, and they will catch small moths as well, and once they've had enough feeding, then they'll have a rest somewhere, either on a tree trunk or under a branch somewhere. It can be some distance from where their daytime roost is, and then they'll have another feeding session once there's been some digestion and they've got room to pack in some more food. And remember, the females are still, at this time of the year, they'll carry on feeding the youngsters and suckling them, so they need to eat for two, if you like, and then they'll come back to the nursery and feed the young, maybe once or twice or even 3 times in the evening. There we are. And I now walk to the end of my house and I'm looking at this new extension where there's a flat roofed area and there's bats coming out there as I'm speaking. 2 have just emerged, and it's absolutely fantastic to see. Another one's just come out above my head and flown over, and there's probably 20, in previous evenings I've counted 25 coming out, and there can even be more there than that. So some of the roosts, up to 1,000, have actually been recorded in the very large roosts, but that's very rare these days. And it's now getting almost dark, but because of the light tonight over in the western horizon, I can actually see them flying out and about. I've really upset the local dog now, so I'm just going to walk down the farmyard a little bit. And this is another favourite haunt for them, down in the buildings, many of which are new, and the bats seem to like those. Even with new house building, it surprises everybody that bats will often choose new houses, particularly pipistrelles, over older properties. And I'm just looking out over the end of the workshop here, and here's the farmyard duck pond, and I think most of the mallard have left. And there's lots of trees around the pond, and all the security lighting's now come on for the evening. Oh, there's a good 20 mallard left on the duck pond. Rat's very excited about this. He's just run past me, and there's bats flying over the water. So I'm just going to sit down on the edge of the pond here. There's a steep bank. There's enough light coming through that I can see the pipistrelles right in front of me now, just darting above the water, rather like swallows going down. But they're actually after the insects, and they're finding them with that inaudible sound to us. I used to be able to hear the larger bat species when I was in my youth, and obviously now the pipistrelle's way too high, the pitch of it. We do have a species here at the farm which are really audible just before they leave their roost, and they're called noctules. It's one of the larger British bats. It's the wingspan's about 12 inches, about 30 centimetres. And we have a nursery here at the farm high up in a Scots pine tree, and it's been there for a year or two now. It has been recorded as an official site, and they're much larger. And just before they leave their daytime roosting site, then they get very, very noisy, and one after the other will fly out of the hole. It must be quite a large hollow in the tree, and that's also a nursery site where the young are kept, and it's on the south side of a very large Scots pine tree that got struck by lightning many years ago. And they fly rather differently, the noctule, to the pipistrelle and the serotine, which do that diving, twisting flight. And they'll come out of their roost site and fly straight off down to the river valley, and they prefer feeding over water. Oh, I'm just waving my arms around, and I've upset the 4 geese, which are all trying to sleep by the duck pond on the other side of the water. Oh, another bat just flew past me, heading down to the pond. I've just turned round and looking westwards towards what's left of the daylight now. It's almost gone. It's absolutely magical to see the air still full of flying creatures, and yep, another bat just flying around. Somebody's turned some stable lights on now. A bit of late grooming for a horse, that's attracted some insects by the look of it, and there's bats flying all round the stable door. That's really lovely. Both of my sisters were petrified of bats. They wouldn't go out in the evening. And I think it was a way of my father keeping my eldest sister at home by saying if she goes out at night, the bats will get in her hair and she won't be able to get them out. And so whenever she went out to see one of her first boyfriends, she wore a headscarf. Oh dear. My poor father, he had no control over her whatsoever, but she got away with it, so there we are. I just remember he got quite cross once. On the garage wall in the whitewash was inscribed by my sister, PSLGD, and that was Pat Skinner loves, and I won't say his name, he might be embarrassed.
Just in the truck going to the next location. We've just seen a wonderful sight there, Chris.
Yes, it was one of the adult buzzards just in one of the oak trees close to where we were just standing, Matthew, just gliding off without a care in the world, and that obvious sort of chocolate brown plumage, and that's the deceptive thing with buzzards.
Up there somewhere, I think.
Yes, I think it's landed in one of these oaks here, which are covered in ivy, and they vary in colour so much. The ones you'll see on the camera almost have silvery white breasts, and that's quite normal. 2 years ago we had almost a pure white one, and generally they're kind of tawny gold colour, almost verging in black in places, so hugely variable. Really lovely to have them.
Well, after those delicate little bats that you were enjoying, it's wonderful to see the buzzard that you were talking about as well.
Small flying mammals and a great thundering great brute like that. That's what biodiversity's all about, the variety that any particular habitat will support.
Chris, we're in the woodland here, bit of relief from the heat.
Yes, another one there. Just going to land, hopefully, in one of the shafts of sunlight. Matthew, we're in Fox's Grove. As you said, in the shade now. Sycamore trees still got their leaves on. Another week, and I think there'll be quite a lot of the leaf litter on the floor because just no real rain in the forecast. But there's shafts of sunlight coming down through the trees. There's enough gaps there, and there's one just on the wing.
Just in the sunlight.
We've got almost a pure woodland species here, right beside us, and it has
gone down.
Yeah, it's gone down. Let's go see if we can have a look. There. Settled on the woodland floor. We go closely. It's called a speckled wood. And this is their time of year, and it's landed with its wings folded above its back.
I got it, yes.
You can just see it.
What a small butterfly.
Yes,
that.
it is quite petite. Unusual. It's sort of food plant for the larvae is grass species, things like cocksfoot and couch grass, and they lay their eggs on the grass, but it's a very, very beautiful little butterfly. If it opened its wings for us, it's kind of chocolate brown, and I can't tell from here whether it's a male or a female. It's only about 5 feet from us, but the total is about 3 centimetres, about an inch sort of wingspan, so it's quite a diminutive little butterfly. But this beautiful kind of chocolate brown with eyes on the upper side of the wing, about 3-4 eyes, very prominent. When it lands, it has a little trick that it exposes some of the eyes on the upper surface of the wings. So if a predator was about, it would think, oh, something's landed. It's got quite big eyes, so I'll probably give it a miss.
There it goes.
And there it is, just flying past us.
It's just right behind you.
Yeah.
Behind you, and then back again.
Yeah, they'll often patrol because they look
There's
demure.
2. Another one went up.
Yeah, oh wow. Yes, they're having a little sparring contest, and that's typical of them because the male will sort of
Oh, it's right up to us.
Yeah, right, it's fairly close to us. A male will kind of secure a tiny area in the sun, right down on the woodland floor, and there'll be other males high up in the canopy, and occasionally they'll drop down because females like these sunny spots on the woodland floor and will come, and so the resident male in this spot of sunlight stands the greatest chance of meeting a female. So how it works is, if one of the males up in the canopy fancies his chances, oh, we're being courted by one now, just flying around in a circle in the sunshine the whole time. So these males up in the canopy come down, and the one who's commandeered the little sunny patch on the woodland floor will say, no way are you coming down here, and generally they'll have a tussle and they'll fly right back up into the canopy, and generally the owner of the sunny patch on the woodland floor wins and then comes back and settles on what he calls his little patch, and that's how it works. You've got one behind you now and just going to settle down. Yeah, so quite a common species, and it's just settled down on the woodland floor just 10 feet from us.
Just found a
We
tiny
look like
bit of
two
sunshine.
kind of Victorian butterfly collectors. And so it's settled down. Once they're on the woodland floor, again it's in a sunny patch, almost invisible. Yeah. So as you walk up closely, there it is, and you can just see the speckles on the wings on this one. The light's actually shining through. Can you see? It's just on the bracken leaf there.
That's it. Yeah, on the greenery there.
Yeah.
But they are speckled and they're wood colours, so
Yes,
speckled wood. They're nice and
speckled wood.
easy to
And
spot.
Drat, I moved. It actually got its wings open, which is unusual for them. They normally, once they land, they close their wings up, so they disappear in the woodland sort of litter on the woodland floor. But really unusual. And it's come back almost to the same spot. As I said, they'll commandeer lots of them, so we must have got 100 pairs quite close to us. I said it's quite a common butterfly, but one, because of the colour, when their wings are folded, it's buffish grey in colour. You can easily miss them.
Will they see off other butterflies?
Yes, yeah, they will. They'll take on large whites, and yeah, they're quite aggressive. They mean business. At school, we used to have small boys. It was a boys' school where I went, and they had to kind of learn to fight their corner. And these butterflies are exactly the same. This is my patch, and you're not having it. But up in the canopy, there'll be lots up there of sort of males that haven't got a sunny patch. They'll be watching this little area of sun, and they'll fly down and fancy their chances at sort of commandeering the sun on the woodland floor. So it's actually quite lovely to see. When you normally associate butterflies with being very demure and gentle, and these ones buck the trend. I love it.
They've got attitude.
They're feisty. That's the only way. Another one over just in the distance, just flitting around. They've all. Oh, and that's a small white coming past us.
So it could well be seen off.
No, it'll be seen off if it's unlucky. It'll be attacked by
there we go.
speckled wood. It's a wonder it hasn't been spotted, and if it flies through somebody's patch, it will certainly be attacked and said, clear off, this is my spot. A bit like old farmers used to do, get off my land. Anyway, a lovely sort of interlude. So you got birds, bats and insects in this week's podcast. The variety here is just incredible, all the different species that we visit through the year. Another one flying past. Oh yeah, there's two of them. A male's just arrived, and see what I mean?
You've got an aerial dogfight there.
Yeah, exactly. That one's landed and on the branch in front of us, and if we go slowly and quietly towards it, again I can see the speckles. This one's landed with its wings closed, and I can just see the eye spot just peeping through the top of the wing to say, I don't think you should have a nip out of me, because I'm bigger than perhaps I think I am by having the eyes on the top there. And there was 2 or 3 simultaneously, but that was perfect when you saw that little sort of dogfight, as you called it. and that's actually typical of this species. But they're thriving here. But the funny thing is, there's none of their food plants in this woodland. It's just too dry. But all round the outside of the wood, large areas of both cocksfoot and couch grass, which is a farmer's nightmare, but that's what they lay their eggs on. That's the larval food plant.
So when they want to eat, they venture out. But
Yep.
This is where they spend most of their time.
This is it. They'll commandeer these sunny patches because that's where the females congregate, and mating has a very important part in all the creatures' lives that we investigate. There we are. Look at that. Right in front of us, speckled wood having a rest in the sunshine.
Back at the truck, we're going to answer a couple of emails that have arrived. Claire. Hi Chris, I'm on holiday in Lesvos in Greece, and to my absolute delight I have the nicest neighbours in the world. I thought you'd like this photograph of them hanging out on a ledge opposite my balcony. Not sure exactly what they are, but I have a hunch that you will. So Claire has sent us this photograph. Let's have a look. Oh my word. Well, those look like your friends the swallows.
Yes, it is. Several people thought they were house martins. Some people thought they were swifts. And I've blown up the portion of the picture and have a close look at it. They have white breasts and the distinctive blood red chin, and they're swallows. So you have to realise that not all our barn swallows migrate. They haven't got the urge. Some actually stay behind and nest down in the Mediterranean region. But there are several other species of swallows as far north as Mediterranean. There's one called the red-rumped swallow, which is very similar looking. So you do have to be careful with bird identification when they're in other countries. But that's a lovely little congregation of them there. And so there are these particular ones are normal barn swallows, the same ones that visit the UK here. So thank you very much for that. You're very lucky to have such obliging neighbours that queue up outside your balcony.
Not a bad way to spend a couple of weeks in the summer either, over to the Greek islands.
Yeah, too hot for me.
We've got plenty of heat here, haven't we? Linda has sent an email. I recently visited High Ash Farm, and a tremendous farm it is as well. Not that I saw it all, as it was in the week we last had storms and torrential rain. I got drenched. My God, this must be an old email. Anyway, being an amateur photographer, I visited my local churchyard to photograph some flowers. When you stop and pause to take a look, you can find quite a number. I then had to look them all up as I was due to do a presentation at a club. I couldn't tell half a story, could I? I think the churchyard is a time for contemplation and reflection of the lives of those gone before. It doesn't have to be a sad place. I do respect people people who are sad. Have you spoken about rats on the farm, she asks. We had one in the garden enjoying the bird table. I grew quite fond of the rat's antics, but truth be known, I wanted him to move house.
Yes, well, we mention rat each week, which is our demented terrier, but I think this is the really long-tail variety, the rodent Rattus rattus. And
you can hear his name. Look, rat's here by our feet.
He's jumped out of the truck now, and the email goes on to say, I suspect a sparrowhawk invited him to dinner as he disappeared a few days after he had taken a bird in the garden. Does the farm suffer with rats, especially with sunflower seeds, etc.? Yes, we do have rats here out on the farm. I knew that dog would have to interfere with his
He keeps hearing his name.
He does. Come here then, let me pick you up. Yes, I've mentioned too many rats. He said, there is only one, and it's me.
This town ain't big enough for the both of us.
In the farm, we have a livery yard, and all the horses have their food in booths, so there's no spillages. I try and encourage the girls, because if you spilling food, then it's almost certainly you'll attract rats into the area, particularly underneath bird tables where some of the messy bird feeders like pigeons, starlings and particularly sparrows spill a lot of the food on the ground, and that's a sure recipe to either attract mice or rats into your garden. So we don't really have a problem at all. We have predators out on the farm. Foxes, for instance, that's number one on their diet, really. They absolutely love to catch and eat rats. So the poor rat does have a rough time here. And not the particular one that's now chewing something in the front of the truck there.
I dread to think what he is. Oh, is it a walnut?
Yeah, I think there's a walnut dropped in off one of the trees.
Wet walnut, lovely. That's the only wet thing that's around, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yes. So no, we don't have a problem with them at all. And if we did have a problem, then I ring the local council. We have a professional rodent officer will come round and bait proper secure rat base stations, but I haven't had to do that for 3 years now, maybe 4. So we haven't had a problem. So, but they are very entertaining, as you said, and you can grow quite fond of them. But then one rat is another and another and another, and you end up overwhelmed with them. So thank you very much indeed for the question. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Linda. Thank you very much. And Chris's email address for future episodes, chris@highashfarm.com. Don't forget those buzzards on Facebook, High Ash Farm Facebook. And there's also a website, highashfarm.com/podcast, if you want to discover how you can help support this weekly enterprise.
Yes, exactly. Any contributions are very welcome, obviously. But I hope to see you again next week, and fingers crossed. I think I'm going to have to teach you to do a bit of rain dancing before you come here next week. We are desperate, absolutely desperate now. So it really is a pound a drop if we get a good shower of rain. And here comes Rat. He's walked down the truck in the shade. And you're ready to do some more work on the farm, Rat? Yep, his ears are cocked, his head's on one side and then the other. He's all ready to go. Gonna come in the car? Shall we go back to the farm? Come on, I'll lift you out. Good lad.